hit Mark, don't hit Mark, don't hit Mark. And so he hit Mark. Yeah. Just
Don't hit the
absolutely.
trees. Yeah. Don't hit the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a great story. That is actually a great story.
Yeah.
So,
But
anyway, so what led you? And this is, again, this is just precursor. This
yeah,
is just.
no worries.
So, and we might talk about this again during the interview, but what led you to become an action coach?
So we can go anywhere in that story, but the shorter, not the shortest, but shorter version is born and raised in Spearman, lived here in Amarillo for a few years. We moved to San Antonio with a full expectation that 3 to 5 years would be in San Antonio, and then we were moving back up here. We woke up 32 years later, and we were still in San Antonio. And
So worst place to be, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was great. And we lived in Bernie, which is right outside of San Antonio. It's this great community, great people. Loved it there.
What did you do down there?
So I moved down there to work for Builder Square, which was a home improvement warehouse.
I remember.
Yeah. Well, I am. Still am. But worked for them for 9 years. But we were wholly owned by Kmart. And so we were the cash cow for Kmart.
Right.
But Kmart was getting beat by everybody. So every penny we made, we sent back to Detroit to Kmart. And we got to a spot where the Kmart shareholders told Joe Antonini that he had to get out of Builder Square. And so we got bought by a private equity firm and merged with 2 other home improvement. So you may remember the big green HQ that was on the home improvement buildings for a while. So that was home quarters. So my last 6 months at Builder Square was just taking out, I was in IT, so it was taking out all the systems that I had put in and putting them back to a base that was horrible. But I did about 15 stores in a weekend, convert all their systems, turn them back over to this not as good version of what they could be. Then I spent a year at AT&T doing really big pension plan administration projects, but was on the road all the time. And my boys were 2 and 5, and they hated me being on the road.
I can imagine.
So
he seemed like such a dad, engaged dad.
Yeah. So a friend of mine that was actually the HR lady at Builder Square, that the last day we were at Builder Square, so we had 42 people at Builder Square the last day. So Karen fired all of us. And then.
Was that her real name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Karen fired us. And then I fired her, did the paperwork for her to be done. And then we put the keys to the building in an envelope and mailed them back to the corporate office.
Oh my goodness.
But so while I was at AT&T, she went to work at H-E-B grocery company. So she called me and said, "Hey, we got a new role over here at H-E-B. Would you come be my boss?" And I said, "I don't think you can hire me, but if there's somebody I can talk to, I'd love to be your boss." And so I went to H-E-B for 15 years.
So leadership has always been
Yeah. So I was in IT for a bit, and then moved over to finance and accounting. And then I ran the shared service center that did payroll, benefits, and HR. So we did 80,000 paychecks a week. We had 120,000 people that we did benefits for. So
wow.
I thought I was going to be at HEB for my career.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was the CIO at Whataburger, and I spent a few months working with him and the CEO, kind of talking about new organization design, some things that they were going to do in the shared service space. And about 6 months after that, I went to work for Whataburger, and I was their project management office kind of leader and chief strategy guy at Whataburger for about 7 years.
So corporate leadership has been your thing, hasn't it?
Yeah. But now back to I woke up 32 years later and we were still in San Antonio. My mom was 89, 88. Still living on the family farm in Spearman.
Oh, wow.
So we needed to get back home.
So sure. Yeah.
We were at a good spot at Whataburger where I could leave. We were about to do a huge reorganization. And so they had it all designed with me in a role. And I said, how about we redesign it without me here? And so we redesigned the organization. I went from 325 people working for me on the 31st of December to nobody working for me on the 1st of January. So I went about 3 months. I stayed three months after the transition at Whataburger. And then packed up and moved up here.
Yeah.
But through that whole, through that process, I had been in leadership, but I'd also been doing developing mentor programs for the organization. I'd been doing executive coaching for folks inside the business.
Like
for years.
As a coach or?
No, just as a leader.
Just as a leader. That's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah, but that was, so I mean, I spent 20 years doing coaching in one form or fashion inside corporate organization.
Until you realize that coaching is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I had coaches all along the way. I mean, coaching, everybody should have a coach.
Say it again.
I mean, if you look at athletes, they don't have one coach, they have 5 coaches. Right? I mean, the best professional athletes in the world have multiple coaches. And yet we think I don't need an outsider's perspective on my game, right? But I can be so much better if I've got an outsider with that perspective. And so that's the role that I feel today. And kind of multiple facets, but whether that's, mid-sized firms with the CEO and his executive team, or if it's the small business owner that just got started. I've got a no-kidding coal-fired blacksmith down close to Stephenville that I coach. First time I talked to him, he said, I've got the greatest job in the world. He said, I get to play with fire and hit stuff with a hammer. He said, how much better can that be, right? But
his life is perfect.
He loved doing that, but how to do business, right? How to market himself, he needed help, right? And so that was, those are just as fun for me as the CEO and the leadership team.
So did you find yourself doing this at church too, or did they say, "Oh, hey, you look like a good leader. We need you as"?
I've filled every position somewhere along the line on the church side.
Yeah.
And I do coach from in my kind of offerings today, whether it's coaching executive directors, nonprofit leaders, working with boards. But there is opportunity with pastors and leadership teams in that space as well. So that'll be, as I continue, I think I'll see more and more of that.
Right. I hope so.
Because there is, again, nonprofits are business, churches are business. We use money, right? So Simon Sinek says that money is like gas for your car. Profits are like gas for your car. And so you've got to have it so your car can go where you need to go. Yeah. And so it's not the end game or the end result that you're looking for, but it's, if I'm going to make a bigger impact, whether I'm a church or a nonprofit or a for-profit business, I've got to have profit.
Exactly.
So that's
to move you forward, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with confidence as well.
Right. And so if you're, there are business leaders that say, I'm just trying to make sure that there's still money in the bank account when I get to the end of the month. I would much rather say I have confidence that I know how much money is going to be in the bank account at the end of the month, and I can invest it in this way to make bigger impact, right? And that's the thing,
right? So y'all go to church here in town, right?
In Canyon, so we go to the First Methodist Church in Canyon.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So you've always been pretty much basically faith-based.
Yes, ma'am.
in your approach in life. And, you know, I really, don't you love Simon Sinek though?
Yes, I do.
I get a lot of information out of. He'll give it back, I promise.
It's not mine.
Oh.
Okay. I don't want him to give it back, and he probably doesn't want to.
So you find yourself back here in Amarillo, and you start working with corporate execs here, or I mean, almost immediately, or just said, "Hey, I'm a."
No, so Action Coach is a franchise. So I bought the franchise rights for.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so one thing I know is I could have spent a lot of time building systems, processes, and frameworks to do coaching, or I could invest in somebody that had already done it for more than 25 years, buy the frameworks, or at least the intellectual property rights to that. But then I'm always going to be building, creating, doing new and additional things on top of that. But
because you find yourself being creative anyway, right?
Yeah, but having the initial frameworks, I mean, is 12, 18, 24 months of head start that you don't have to do.
So investing in that was just perfect for you.
Yeah.
So do you call yourself an action coach?
So Action Coach is the brand.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, business coach, executive coach, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Advisor, soothsayer. Right? I mean, whatever. Counselor. I mean, we counsel a lot.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
I love family business, and
like the small family business.
Any family. I mean, 90% of businesses in the United States are not publicly traded; they're privately held, and so that's going to be family based.
Right.
And so, and all my career. When I was here in Amarillo, I worked for Hastings Books and Records.
Taking me back.
Right. Builder Square was a family-owned business that had just been bought by Kmart a few years before I moved to San Antonio. H-E-B is still family-owned and operated by the Butt family. Mm-hmm. Whataburger was owned by the Dobson family. So my whole career has been family business. Mm-hmm. So families are hard they just are. Business is hard. And so then we can make family business, when you put those two together, we can make it extremely hard, or you can make it very easy. But what I find, right, is that part of family is that I've got 20, 30, 40 years of history with you, right? And so I'm carrying all that baggage into family business. So how do we reset boundaries, reset ground rules so that we're talking about the business, and then we've got to manage the family in a different and separate way. Now, you still need to have family meetings. We still need to talk about what's the legacy that we're trying to leave. I mean, all those things are part of it, for sure. Mm-hmm.
I love the way the word legacy anyway, because I think as part of a family, that's what you want to leave. A healthy family wants to leave a legacy, right? They want to leave the impact, and so you have a passion for that. I can tell you have that passion.
The part that we forget or that we lose is that the legacy is not the four walls of the business. It's not the hardware store or the grocery store or the paint business that we own, right? That's not the legacy that I'm leaving you. It's the values, the character, the business skills, right? I mean, that's what I'm leaving you. And so I've got a number of clients who've told me that we need help in the business, but I am not leaving this business for my children. So I've got a kid that's 2. By the time they're 16, I need to be out of this business. I'm like, fantastic. We got 14 years, get the business where it needs to be, and we can sell it. And then you can do whatever you want to do, right? I mean,
so it's more of an investment at that point
but the kid still gets to see the family, the values that are important to the family. They can be part of the discussion and decision-making on what nonprofits to support. I mean, they can do all of that, but then they can also, at the end of that, say, we just sold the business. We got this money. Now, son, daughter, what do you want to do? Right? What business do you want to start? How much more impactful is that than saying, I need you to come with a hardware store with me every day for the rest of your life? Right? I mean,
right. Yeah.
When you're not interested in the hardware store at all.
Yeah. When you have your own dreams.
That's right. Yeah.
When you have your own goals. And
I love the hardware store, right? But that doesn't mean that everybody would.
Right. That's very true. And so many times those goals are squashed because of the expectations.
Yeah. I mean, second generation a lot of times gets engaged and loves it. But by the time you get to the third or fourth generation, it's not the same.
Right.
Now, I've got clients that, are fourth generation. They're in the sixth generation, right? I mean, the legacy is the business, and they're okay with that. But they may still make the decision, this is not what our kids are going to do. And that's okay.
One of my questions that I ask my clients is, what did you want to do when you were 10 years old? And I want to hear that. Right. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a singer, or, right. That I wanted to be a guitarist or a piano player or whatever, some kind of performance or something. I want to hear those things. Okay. So now you're 38 years old, and is that still a possibility? Okay. Where's your passion? You had a passion for that. Right. So where is that going? So what kind of goal can we pour that passion into?
Right.
These are the questions that I have. So many times, in fact, an artist friend of mine told me that when a child is about 4 years old, if you were to ask a group of 4-year-olds, hey, who's an artist in here? Everybody would raise their hand. Me, I'm an artist, right? But by the time they're 10, 11, 12 years old, who's an artist in here? Not me. No, I'm not really an artist. It's kind of educated out of them, unfortunately.
Or they're not good at it, right?
Or they're not good at it. Right. I mean, there's that, So that's true too.
Right. I mean, I don't know whether it's educated out of it or not, but there were only 2 kids in my 4th grade class that didn't get the writing certificate, and I was one of them, right? So
that's funny.
Denise Blackburn was the other one. Not that I have scars, but, no. Right? I mean,
you're dealing with it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. That's funny. Well, I
would never call myself an artist in that way. Am I creative? Absolutely. Right. And so I think that may be a different and better question. Is we're all creative in some way, right? And we don't want to educate that out of any of us.
Sure. Or convince you that you're not good at it when really you have a natural inclination.
Yeah.
You were naturally inclined to go towards a leadership area, and you kind of landed in the right spots at the right time.
Or had a hand working in that. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've applied for one job in the last 40 years. Every other job, somebody called me and said, what about this?
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the way it has worked for me. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. I mean, you should have a path and you should know where you're going. But for me, it was more serendipity than that.
Right. So what does success look like for you?
So the concept I've been playing with over the last, it really hasn't been that long, last month or so, is I really want to redefine what success is for all of us. And we talk about and you talk about it, whether you're talking about clients or you talk about it when I did it when I was in IT all the time, talking about what's the lifetime value of a piece of software that we're buying, right? So what's the impact going to be for us for the lifetime? Or if I'm in sales, I'm talking about, I want to retain you as a client for the lifetime so that I get a higher lifetime value from that relationship.
Right.
And I think success for me, in the definition that I've been playing with, is I want to start defining my lifetime value for everybody that I interact with. And so that, and not to keep score or to say, where are we on a ledger between you and I? I just want to know that I continue to add value to you every time we interact. And so if you think about,
it's a beautiful goal, by the way.
Who would you say had the highest lifetime value ever, right? I mean, Jesus is at the top of that list, right?
Sure.
I mean, there is nobody that poured out more for more people than Jesus, right?
Right, right.
But then we could all create a list of 10 to 15 people, and probably half of them the people would be the same on every list, right? I mean, we'd start talking about, Paul or Peter or James, or we would talk about Mother Teresa or Billy Graham, or, right? I mean,
Martin Luther King.
We're
talking
Nelson
about
Mandela,
impact.
right? I mean, we'd go down a list and we'd have a lot of those people that are the same on the list,
right?
Because they had crazy high lifetime value.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's the redefining what success is for me from now till the end is, how do I get the highest lifetime value for everybody that I interact with?
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, grocery store people, the guy that's watering the fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
Speaking life to people.
Yeah. I mean, I can be a life sucker or a life giver, right?
Right.
And so I could be very hard to get along with, right? And take life from you, or be somebody that when you saw me walking into the produce section, you'd turn and go the other way because you don't want to interact with me again today, right?
Right, right.
Or I could be somebody that added value. And it's not a big step, right? It's small increment. I mean, it could just be a smile, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be eye contact. But what is it for everybody that you interact with?
You know what I have found out that I have really enjoyed doing is the people who sack my groceries.
Mm-hmm.
I find something I look at them and remark about something about them, like the braids in their hair, or, I really like that look on you. That's a really cool look for you. Or something like that, and tell them. And it's always a response of,
right. Yeah. I mean, and when it's sincere, right? I mean,
sure. 100%.
When
Yeah.
it's sincere, it makes an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because people aren't getting those life-giving words much anymore.
So one of the biggest kind of issues for folks is we go through life being unseen.
Oh.
And so
wow.
If a question, it's not in my journal right now, but for about 2 years, one of the questions that I had in there was, who did I interact with today so that they felt seen?
Boy, that is the truth, isn't it?
Right? I mean, and you have to be intentional about that, because there are folks that that, and they can be in very busy places all day, every day, right? And be unseen and feel like nobody knows who they are, or nobody cares, or nobody would miss me. So a small comment in the checkout line about, I like those braids, or how long have you had those? Or when I was in here last week, those were blue and today they're green.
Right.
I mean, it makes a huge difference.
That's really something, because I'm doing a mental inventory about the people that I come in contact every single day. And that really gives me a focus now because I truly and sincerely want to bring life to people, and to their hopes and their dreams and who they are, their identity, their goals. But sometimes you have to start small. And like, I really like those braids, or thank you for doing what you just did. I saw what you just did.
Yep.
And I really appreciate that, So that's really, so I'm doing this mental inventory about all the people that I come in contact with, So interesting. That's really interesting.
So I'm not sure that was the definition of success you wanted, but that's the one I'm going with.
I love that one. I love that one.
Yeah.
I have a tendency, and maybe sometimes this isn't so good, but I tell people if I'm not giving you a hard time, I don't like it, Yeah. So I tease people. Yeah. And but they all know me. I mean, heartfelt, that I love them and do anything for them. But there are times that I look at people and say, you know what? I don't care what anybody says about you. I really like you a lot, Yeah. And that shocks them and gives them a place. They know that I'm thinking, kind of gives them a shock there for a second. But they also know that I'm thinking about them. I see them, but sometimes that can be that can backfire on me too.
Yeah.
So interesting. So, are you glad you're back in Amarillo?
Yes.
Weather and all, right? You didn't have any kind of weather like this.
No, we didn't. I don't have to worry about hurricanes. We didn't in San Antonio either, but I had stores on the coast that I had to worry about hurricanes all the time.
Yeah.
When we were in San Antonio.
Right. But, so, your mom
passed away right before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
So she lived 93 years. It was fantastic. She was doing her very own thing all the way up to the very end.
I love that.
She went to church on Sunday, went to a club meeting on Tuesday, and then had a massive stroke on Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving. And then she was in the hospital, in hospice for about 4 days.
Before she passed.
Yeah.
Well, as much as I'm sorry for your loss, of course, but I love the fact that she lived her life.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
There was no issue, no anything all along the way.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
She was her own mean self all the way to the very end.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. But, she taught Sunday school, adult Sunday school in Spearman for 60 years.
Methodist church?
Yeah, Methodist church.
Until she was 65?
No, for 65 years.
Oh, big difference there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she taught for a long time.
That's awesome.
But I did grab a handful of Bibles and books and things like that she had used her whole career.
Oh, sure.
Which were
those kind of things are
special.
foundational.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very special.
Yeah. My mom was the spiritual guidance in my home, and I credit her for being a seeker and finding out about God and where she would teach me, and so I have a very deep relationship with the Lord, and I think it's because Mom. She wasn't perfect, but she did lead me to the Lord. Those kind of things are foundational. So, okay, I think we've got some good content here, huh? Yeah. So you want to, and you've recorded all of this. You're recording it now. This is something that can be edited. We're in the editing phase. Okay. You can speak. Yeah. So, shall we do the start? Okay. Do what?
That wasn't it.
Well, that was like the 20 minutes of content creating, kind of. And I never did an intro. Oh, that's what we're doing. I forgot about that. Well, I think that we can say that was it then. What do you think?
You got any other questions you want to ask me?
Oh, I have, Rory, don't.
I'm game.
I mean, if you're going to open.
Yeah, just ask.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Face part, yeah. If I had you for an afternoon, I could peg you with a million questions.
Okay.
So I refer to myself as a journey coach.
Okay.
I help women in their middle years that have gone through some kind of transition. And those middle years can be like, I think we were talking about it, in fact, about, empty nest syndrome or divorce, widowhood. We just came out of a pandemic.
Right.
A lot of
huge impact.
Just a huge transition there, right?
Yeah. When we started the pandemic, I was at Whataburger. We had 700 people in the corporate office. We sent 680 of them home, all in one day. So Wednesday, the 18th, there were only 20 of us that were allowed to come to work, right? Everybody else was at home. And then we went through huge transitions on how things worked and how we were going to work. But then we started hiring people, right? And the question I asked then that I think we're finally starting to see the answer to is, Whataburger had an amazing culture inside the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now you start hiring people in this work from home world where you don't get that same infusion of what the culture is. And so...
Oh, and it started out as a wonderful idea.
Right. But I'm not connected. I don't know who... none of the stories or the lore or how do you interact with Delesa versus how do you work with me, right? None of that because we're all talking on Zoom. And so...
Right.
We're starting to pay the price today. And you could argue that we started paying it in 2021, but you're starting to see now that you've had 4 years of people leaving, retiring, moving on. And so now the culture is not the same as it was. And I don't know how you restore that. And so, so back to, I'm going through a transition, right, of whatever it is, whether it's, every one of those has the same impact that COVID did on us corporately, nationally, any of that. But those are all happening to each one of us individually. And a, conversation that always comes up is when your friend goes through divorce or when they lose a spouse or when they lose a child. Everybody cares and loves on them for 6 weeks, right? 8 weeks,
yeah.
Right? And then they're all back to their lives and you're left without the spouse, without the child, right? Whatever
without
that
support.
is, right? And, we're about to come on the 2-year anniversary of the tornado in Perryton, right? We sent money and food and clothes and all that kind of stuff. It was June 15th, June 16th, 2 years ago. Right. And so August, we'd all moved on. There are people in Perryton that are still suffering. There's people in Perryton that still need help and support. Right.
If nothing else, the PTSD that resulted from that,
yeah.
And people still have COVID PTSD.
Yeah.
And it's just a fact, So when these women have gone through a big transition in general, retirement, just general attrition, those natural changes, right? They can be left without a focus or their identity or their, I just remember when my son and daughter-in-law got married, who I adore, by the way. I adore my daughter-in-law and my son. But I just thought, oh, wait a minute, I'm no longer a mom. Momming was such a focus for me. Oh, now what do I do?
Right.
So it was a huge change. I've been divorced twice, and I'm on my third husband, and I've told him, if something happens to him, there's not going to be a number 4. I'm not doing this again. I adore that man. So, but that was very hard for me. Maybe it was my age. Maybe it was just suddenly realizing, that I'm not a mom
right
anymore. Of course, I'm always his mom, but
you're not just a mom,
right?
Or not just that relationship changed,
right? And so many people, women especially, focus on that, or their home, or their husbands. I'm his wife, or I'm an employee. I work for this and this. I've done this for 42 years,
right?
And they place so much of their identity in that. So much of their lives have been poured into fill in the blank,
right?
And they just lose their identity when all of a sudden it's gone,
Yeah.
But you're right. So much of the time, the support is just not there. I remember the first divorce that I went through. We had some good friends. We had a circle of friends that we were all tight. We went through that divorce. They were nowhere around.
Yeah.
I felt so alone and abandoned.
And it was awkward for them.
Oh,
right? I mean,
terribly so.
And they didn't want to be either accused of or choosing sides, right?
Sure.
I mean, and so for them, it was easier to walk away than it was to try to engage with both, right? And
so much easier.
And that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and going through that and knowing what I know on this side of the bridge, I can see the single moms, the recently divorced or the recently retired women, and they're just have no clue of who they are on the foundational level anymore.
Right.
So that's why I call myself a journey coach, because I walk through the process with them and to allow them to reclaim that identity and to find their purpose, because it's not over at 65.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I think I told you, I mean, there are a couple of women in Lubbock that I need to get you connected with.
Oh, please do.
It's called Unpack Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is they help women unpack the baggage and garbage of their lives and get corrected, straightened up, those kind of things.
Yeah, get back on their
back
feet.
on the right journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is. But
And so many times these women have been, that I've noticed, that I've spoken to my clients, they have no goals. Their goal was to get up, serve their families,
right?
Go to work, serve their community, whatever, and come home. And that was just, so they had no goals really. So what did you want to do when you were 10?
What did I want to do when I was 10?
Right.
I want to be Roger Staubach.
Absolutely.
Even though I wasn't Catholic, but I did want to be Roger Staubach. So,
see, but a lot of 10-year-old girls want to be seen. They want to be. When you said that about being seen, man, that was a focus there. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful,
mm-hmm.
and it changes just again, you're taking the mental inventory, right? But just think about walking through your day. And it's not everybody, but can I just make sure that there's one person that I know normally feels unseen,
mm-hmm.
that I can make a difference for them today?
Right. The lady who makes my breakfast burrito. And at United, because I talk to her while she's doing it and probably distract her.
Yeah?
No.
But what is that, right?
That's connection. I long for connection, And I think women and generally do as well,
We're relational beings.
Mm.
It all comes back to relationships. I don't care. I can give you tons of great theory and strategy and things about how to make business work.
Mm-hmm.
But the ingredient that if you don't have it, it doesn't matter. It's relationship.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If I don't have a relationship with the people I work with, if I don't have that's another we talk about giving great customer service. Well, the service that I give to my customers will never exceed the service I give and receive to the people I work with. And so if I'm part of a dysfunctional team that is backbiting and fighting and doing all that kind of in the background, and I think I can go out on the show floor or the sales floor and do something different, I mean, that's a fallacy. And so,
exactly. And that's inauthentic. That is.
I mean, and it doesn't lie. I mean, there's no way you can do that in a consistent way. And so I've got to have the right relationships with the people I work with so that I can deliver a good relationship with the people I'm serving.
Right. That's really a good point, that you can't keep up that facade. That consistency.
Yeah, there's no way.
That's interesting, because then we can get into a whole conversation, a whole bunny trail of narcissism and, all of that, which we have way too much problems of that, But you're right. You can't keep that up, but you can keep it up with smiling at each other. And, talk about pandemic again. We were wearing masks everywhere we went.
Right.
I have a tendency to pass by someone, smile, nod, or something like that. And I missed that.
Yeah, you can't do it. I mean, even if you do, I mean, I could still see your eyes smile, right? I mean, I could see that, but it's still not the same.
No, it wasn't. There was a lot of detrimental social things that happened during that time frame, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So, going back to where earlier when you said that everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs that, which I'm fully aware of. And I remember during my hardest times of being a single mom, and being so lonely and not knowing which decision to make and not having any kind of support being spoken to me, I look at those years and I'm thinking, man, if I only had someone like me to walk this path with me, I wouldn't have made near the mistakes that I made, or I wouldn't have felt so lonely all the time, and which was detrimental to my health, to my mental health.
When you felt like you were the only person that was experiencing that, or the only person that had been down that path.
Sure.
When neither was true.
Yeah, I didn't know though.
But there were thousands of people that at that very same time were feeling the exact same thing you were feeling.
Yeah.
And they were just as lost or just as confused.
Yeah.
But there was also somebody that was just one step ahead of you, right? They weren't a mile ahead. They were just one step ahead of you, but could have been a resource. Right.
Oh, sure.
And that's
or an encouragement.
Yeah.
Or someone to say, hey, you've got it in you. You're stronger than you think you are. You've got it in you to do this.
Yeah. Just go do that.
Right. I remember, in fact, I'm picking my son up from daycare, and I would put him in the car in his little car seat, and I would get behind the driver's wheel, and I would reach over to the passenger side, grab a paper bag, and breathe into it, because I was having an anxiety attack. Right. And I had that. And I knew myself at the time so well that I had paper bags, strategically placed, in my world. And I thought, oh my goodness, that would have been a phone call. Hey, I need some grounding.
Yeah.
I need some reality checks here, And I want to. That's why I call myself a journey coach. I want to walk that path. I know that. I know the path. I know the bridge. I know where we're going here. So. I want to be that person that I needed so much. So,
yeah, and I think that's the beauty of coaching, is that if it's not, I know all the answers, but I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and walk along beside you.
Sure.
But there are some hills I've already taken, right? There have been some things I've already done that I can at least give you a little bit of information, and you still have to make the decision. Mm-hmm. I'm not a consultant. I'm not the answer man. I'm a coach, right?
Right. I will push you towards your goal.
And I'll ask the hard questions. I'll be the unreasonable friend, right? I mean, all those things are true, right? But ultimately, it's you're the one that's playing the game, right?
when you said, the coach is the one. I'll ask you questions. Did you know that as a child, I asked people coaching questions? As a small child, my mother would say, "Delesa, you don't ask people those kind of questions." Well, I wanted to know how relationships happen and how people are built in their minds and everything, much to the chagrin of my family.
Yes.
So now I know why I have that natural,
right.
And I'm not trying to be nosy, Or
maybe you are, but that's okay.
I tell people I'm building a bridge. Okay, I'm building a bridge.
You can be a little nosy. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, Rory, thank you so much for coming today. Yeah. I really appreciate you, and I'm going to ask you if you'll think about even coming back and doing another one of these.
Sure.
And question and answer type of thing.
Whatever you want, just give me a holler.
I will. I really appreciate you.
You bet.
I really appreciate the leadership classes and everything. That I did want to tell you that.
Well, thank you.
As well, that you're holding. And are you doing this just for the Amarillo community, or are you doing this as part of your leadership coaching?
Yes and yes.
Oh, excellent.
Right. I mean,
because it's a great resource.
Yeah. So all that, nothing that I've done so far with Allie is something that was new or created for that. I mean, that's part of the stuff that I already have. But if there's anything along the way that if she said, I need something that I didn't have, then we would just create it. I mean, that's pretty confident.
Absolutely.
If the resource isn't already available, I can make it happen. So, but nonprofit leaders, that's a sometimes lonely and very tough job. And so anything we can do in that self-care space to help pour back into them. And again, it fits back in for me into that idea of vibrant community. It has to have churches and nonprofits taking care of the needs of all. And so anything we can do in that space of pouring into that group of people, I'm more than happy to do that. And then, my triangle, right? And so the next layer down is, strong family businesses. Mm-hmm. Because again, if 90% of all the businesses are in that space, that's where we get donation dollars, and that's where we get volunteer hours for nonprofits and churches. And so they've got to be performing at a level that they can make that impact. And that starts with strong families and strong marriages.
Absolutely.
And family has got to be there, right? I mean, and oftentimes we think about only our nuclear family, but it's the extended family. You go all the way back early on in Genesis. When I recount my family, it's not just mom and dad or mom and dad and my two grandparents, right? It's generation and generation and generation back. So that support we've got to have.
Oh, sure.
And then foundationally for me, it starts with people with strong character and strong faith. And what does that look like? And how do we get just a little bit better every day?
Yeah. Oh, that 1% rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James Clear got it right? Atomic Habits, just 1% better.
Yeah. It seems true if you.
Yeah. I mean, he says if I get 1% better every day, well, that may be a little bit of a reach, but 1% better a week, right? I'm 67% better by the time I get to the end of the year.
Right.
If I get 1% better every month, it's 16% better by the time I get to the end of the year, right? I mean, I can do small incremental change and still get way better.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm in the middle of reading that book now, in fact. And so I really appreciate your input.
You bet.
Appreciate your classes, and we will do this again.
Okay.
Okay.
Love it.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
Thank you.